Welcome everybody to the 22nd, believe it or not, 22nd stream of DBB Live. Hope you've all had a great day so far. Ready to talk some Detroit basketball like always. We're back this week. I'm Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys, joined as always by the Aussie himself, Jack Kelly from Detroit Bad Boys. And Jack, how you feeling? Refreshed after the week off?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm good. It's always nice to jump on and talk hoops with you. I was just thinking then, as you said, the 22nd, and I think we've only had 2 weeks off since the end of the season because I believe our first stream was essentially after, very close to the last game of the season. So it's been a long 22 to 24 weeks of really just talking off-season basketball. We're still in the middle of September, so we're still a few weeks away or a couple of weeks away from like the real stuff starting, media day, that kind of stuff, training camp. But yeah, man, always happy to jump on and talk hoops and excited for today's show.
Yeah, I feel like we picked maybe the weirdest time to start a new like live stream type show, just talking NBA basketball with the Pistons and them not having anything going on for the most part this whole summer. So the fact that it's still been so fun has me absolutely jazzed that basketball might be starting up again soon. So yeah, I can't wait for that. But speaking of getting into next season, I hear you've got some over unders for us to get going into. Figured we just jump right into that. I've been looking forward to these.
Absolutely, man. So I've come up with a list of over-unders here, and these are all just me setting these lines. These are not from any betting agencies or anything like that. So I don't really gamble or that kind of thing. It's not really my area of expertise, but I love over-unders because I think it creates some really interesting conversation. So I've got a few team-oriented ones here. So I'm going to open up with probably the most simple one, and we've spoken about this a little bit, but I've set the line for the Pistons wins on the season at 29.5. How does that line sit with you? Are you over or under 29.5 wins?
You do think that's probably a pretty good line. You almost feel like it is on the high end. Uh, sorry, excuse me. I'm leaning towards the under ever so slightly. Because for me, I feel like the real floor of the team is maybe around 25 to 26. And, your realistic outcome is in that 27 to 30 range. And just because there's more numbers, under 29, if I'm putting my high limit at 30, I feel a little more comfortable with the under. That said, I mean, I don't think it's a stretch that they can go higher than that, right? I mean, if they hit 30 wins, if you tell me in by the end of the season they'll be at 30 wins, I'm not shocked. I'm a little surprised and I'm pretty excited, but I'm not just beside myself shocked. So no, I think that's a good line. I'm gonna lean to the under. I'm gonna pick the under.
Yeah, so just for some context, this is one of the few over-unders where I've actually seen sort of some um, betting agencies, and I think the Pistons have been hovering around 27.5 wins. Um, so I think to go under 29.5 is the consensus, I guess, a little bit. I've said my win total for the Pistons is 29, so I would be just under. If I just look at like Twitter, which isn't always the best representation of the entire Pistons fan base, I would say I've seen a lot of between 30 and 34 wins, which is, if you're taking 30 wins, that's just a slight over. But I think if they get 28 wins or more, like that's a really good season. A lot of it, I think we spoke about this on the Pistons Pulse actually, but a lot of it depends as well on how they get these wins. If it's coming via a lot of Joe Harris minutes, Bojan Bogdanovic averaging 25, and the young guys not necessarily driving it as much, I think 28 wins could be a touch underwhelming. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, of course. Do you have anything else to add on the win
Two
loss?
Yeah, I wanted to build and expand a little bit on that last point you made right there, right? Where if maybe they do win 28 games, but it was largely pushed by the vets, that might be a little less satisfying. The way I'm looking at this team, the guys up and down the roster, I mean, you're right. We kind of brought this up a little bit on the Pistons Pulse this week, but there aren't there's not a large crop of veterans that are difficult for the young guys to usurp, right, in their rotation. I mean, it's not like we've got a bunch of borderline all stars that are all over 30, and it's going to be really tough for like Jaden Ivey to get minutes, right? Most of the veterans on this roster, they're good NBA players, and they're borderline starter or rotation players on pretty good teams, but none of those guys are the type of player that's going to win you games, especially on their own. I mean, I think Boyan's maybe the closest you're going to get to it because he is a guy that could drop 30 to 40 points on any given night, just with how well he shoots the ball and how efficient he can be scoring the basketball. My point of bringing this up is that I'm not sure there's actually a world where they win 28 games and it wasn't driven by a lot of the youth movement. Like
Yeah.
Alec Burks is not going to put the team on his back in the middle of February and rattle off 10 wins. That's just I don't see that happening. I guess it could. I mean, Alec Burks can get hot, but I don't envision that really being a realistic outcome for this team. So when I'm looking at it and I'm saying, I think that the floor is at 25. I think 25 wins is about how many you could expect out of a team that would maybe start like Monte Morris, Burks, and Bojan Bogdanovic, and have those three be like the core, right? Those are your vets. So that would be your outcome where the young guys really don't do anything. I think anything more than that, you're looking at a pretty good season from Cade, a pretty good season for Ivy, pretty good rookie year. Like maybe not over the moon good, and maybe that's a little bit disappointing by the time we get to the end of the year. Like, maybe Cade didn't put up 28, 8 and 8 or something like that, right? Maybe just put up 23, 7 and 7. That's still a really good year out of him, and that still drove you some wins. So I don't know. I'm just not really sure that they have the veterans on this team to actually come to an end of a season, win 28, 29 games, and look back and go, wow, our young guys played like trash. We got to reevaluate everything. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense, and I think I'm with you for sure. Um, like as you said, like, and you made a great point. Like none of these veterans, apart from Boyan, really can probably take away minutes. It would be quite shocking to take away minutes. And with Boyan, like we don't have like Asar Thompson's only in his rookie season. So if Boyan's taking minutes from Asar, I don't think that's like an end of the world scenario because Asar is literally in his first season. He's a bit of a role prospect offensively in the half court at least. So, but yeah, I don't really foresee that happening. It's just like that 1% chance it could, I guess. Um, but yeah, I just we spoke about the Pistons polls. I feel like I bring it up every week. Like the rotations of this team are going to be so interesting, and I feel like after 10 games, I'll look back to like what I was thinking in like September and be like, well, hang on, it was obvious how the rotation would play out, but um, it's always tricky before training camp and preseason to sort of figure that out.
Yeah,
All right,
agreed. Oh, hang on, just to tie a bow on it. When I say
yep,
earlier that the veterans they have on the roster can't win you games, I think that the key for me is games plural. On a random night, late in March when the season's almost over, Monte Morris could win you a game, right? Like he can surprise people, go off and win you a game. It's just that they can't. They're not the guys that are going to pile it together, string a bunch of them together, string a bunch of wins together, and all of a sudden your season, looks artificially good. That's what I mean. They're very good players, and I'm quite happy that they're on this team.
no, that's an excellent way to put it. I agree, 100%. All right, next over under defensive rating ranking. So last season the Pistons
Ooh.
ranked 27th. 27th in the NBA for defensive rating. So they pretty much had the 27th worst defense in the league. Now, I think I'm probably going a bit high here, so I'm going to adjust what I had written down. But I'm going to set the over under here at 25. I actually I'll set it at. Sorry, this is really bad. I had it down as 23.5. So essentially, do you think that?
All right.
Yeah, I think I've
For
worded that
clarification,
horribly.
if I
My bad.
say under, am I saying a number that's lower than 25? So that would be better ranking, or am I saying under as in they're worse than 25,
Okay,
and that would be a higher number?
uh, the first option.
The first option. Okay. And you said it was at 25? That's the line?
Let's say 24.5.
Under. I was thinking 23 when you were introducing this. I think that's a reasonable goal for them to get to. And they did add a few guys that are fairly good defenders. Asar Thompson at least looks like he's a good defender. He's definitely going to put effort in on that end. And as much as Monte Morris gets kind of dogged for the defensive performance he put on with the Wizards last year, he's a backup guard that gives you effort on that end, and that does go a long way. So I do. I think they can improve. I think they can improve quite a bit. And what's I'm really sorry. What's the assistant coach's name that they swiped from Indiana,
Oh
who's
man,
never had
I'm
a
blanking.
defensive rating worse than
The,
15 or something like that? Like the guy's a defensive guru, Monty Williams, known as a defensive head coach. I think this team can take some strides, and you're getting a healthy Cade Cunningham back, who, while not a plus defender, is big and is pretty good at keeping other guards in front of him, which is really going to help with the penetration problem that the team had last year. So I'm saying under. I think they can be better than the 24th ranked defensive rating team in the NBA.
I I love that. I thought you were going to take the over because I'm still very skeptical of the defense. I think the improvement is going to come offensively, but we'll get to that in a moment. The defensive end, and this isn't because I don't think this team long term has no defenders. You brought up Asar Thompson. They were 27th though, and I just there's obviously gonna be natural progression. We just brought up Asar Thompson. But with when I look at the rotation, the guys that are going to feature minutes, there's still so many young guys, and there's a lot of questions I have just off ball, and just from sort of a chemistry standpoint, like none of the Pistons core four players have played together for a lot. I mean, Jaden Ivey and Duren have, but Cade hasn't really played with these guys. And I have no doubt Cade clicking with these guys offensively, but defensively, yeah, if you got Cade, Jaden Ivey, Monte Morris as your three guards, I think Jaden and Cade can be really at least good on ball defenders. Cade, I could see off ball developing quite nicely. But yeah, I think I'm going to take the over here. And it's mainly just due to inexperience and maybe chemistry. I think maybe following like the All-Star break, we could see them defensively really start to click. I just think it might take a minute. Jalen Duren, I still think his leap on the defensive end, if it comes, is going to come in year 3 or 4. I still think he still needs a lot more reps at the center position. I hope he gets to play alongside Isaiah Stewart a fair bit or Boyan or just basically not James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley. But yeah, I'm going to take a slight over here. I don't think they'll be 27th, but if I've set the line at 24.5, I think they could be the 25th. So hope I'm proven wrong, but I think I'm still just a little bit skeptical on the defensive end with this team.
I think all that's really fair. I really do. I mean, I definitely can see that that would be the way that it plays out, especially if the team loses some discipline, if the year's not going as well as we all hope it can go by around the All-Star break. I mean, it could go south pretty quickly. I think part of the reason I'm pretty excited about the under on that one, or was it the over? Whatever option was better, the better option on that one is just that I think that being young is a very good excuse for not being a good plus defender in the league. I'm a little more skeptical that it's an excuse for being not like approaching average, just slightly below average defender. If you just put out a team of slightly below average defenders, I mean, average here would be 15th. right? It's a 30-team league. So then slightly below that is anywhere in that 18 to, maybe 25 range. And that's just, I think that's very, very reachable. And I think they have a coaching staff and a group of players that are open to the idea of making that happen. Right. Because a lot of it's effort. And if you're not open and willing to put in that kind of dirty work effort, then it's not going to happen. Um, so yeah, I'm a little more excited about it on that end. That's not to say that I think they're going to be a good defensive team, but just, approaching okay. I think that's right there. I think it's reachable.
For sure. And like, I wish I could remember this Indiana Pacers head coach, but you were right to bring that up in your opening. I just tried to Google it, but I believe he hasn't had I definitely don't think he's had a bottom 10 defense since he's been in the league. I wish I had to research this because that would have been really good to go alongside this question, but that alone sort of backs up your argument that they're taking the under and they'll improve at least 4 to 5
It was
spots from where
Dan
they were
Burke,
last
right?
season. Dan Burke, that's it.
That's who it was. And he was actually okay, he was with the Pacers forever, and then he jumped to the Sixers, and that's where the Pistons swiped him from. Okay. So I was
That
wrong to say they swiped him from the Pacers, but still, very, very good defensive coach.
definitely. And if you bring in Monty Williams as well, and as you mentioned, the rest of the coaching staff, it's easy to see they could take some serious strides on that end, and I hope they do. All right. Moving on, we'll jump to the offensive rating. So last season, the Pistons were 28th in the league for offensive rating. So essentially the third worst offense in the league. I've got the line set at 19.5. Over or under? Do you think that could be a top 20 offense or not a bottom 10 offense? It's probably a better way to phrase it.
Here's the problem, Jack, and this is why I'm absolutely atrocious at these over-unders. Do I think that they can be a top 20 offense? Yes, I do. Am I confident enough in that thought to confidently say you should pick the under on that line? No, I'm not. I am not confident in the idea that this team can be a top 20 offense. I mean, if you look the year prior to last into last year, they actually improved in terms of points per game. They got better on offense, and they still were a bottom five unit in the league, right? Like the way the league's going, it's just so hard to make up ground in that area. Everyone's got real good offensive engines. Everyone can score. I'm take the worst option. Take the over. I'm taking the over. I'm just not confident enough. I want it. I think they can. It scares me.
I
It
love
scares
it.
me, Jack.
I love it. I love we're disagreeing on some things here, at least differing in opinions. This is good. Normally we agree a lot, so this is good because I'm bullish on the offense. I think this is where the team can make some strides. I think last season, I was listening to Sam Zassini's over unders podcast from this weekend. Guess who led the not led the Pistons in minutes, but was who played the second most minutes for the Detroit Pistons last season?
The second most minutes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me who played the first?
I don't know. But just guess who played the
Okay.
second most. I would assume it might
Who played the
be
second most?
who played them.
Killian
Yeah.
Hayes.
Killian Hayes.
Is it
He played
Killian?
the second most minutes. Yeah. Killian Hayes was on the floor the second most amount of minutes. So I don't think, and I wish the best for Killian, but that is not great for your offense. We had 12 games of Cade Cunningham. Jaden Ivey was trying to figure things out as a point guard. James Wiseman started, I feel like almost every game he played after the All-Star break. We were featuring lineups with Jalen Duren and James Wiseman, or James Duren and Marvin Bagley. There was a lot of bizarre lineups being run out, especially post All-Star break last season, that I think significantly tanked the offensive rating. And I think you bring in Monty Williams, who's had point guards similar to Cade and Chris Paul on his roster. I think he's going to bring the best out of Cade. You've got Bojan Bogdanovic. You've got 4 legit shooters in Bojan, Alec Burks, Monte Morris, and Joe Harris. I'm just high offensively on this team. I think they're going to struggle to get stops, and I think they're going to be getting out in transition with Sar Thompson pushing the break, maybe getting some easier buckets. I think Jaden Ivey takes strides, at least in maybe not in points per game, but I think he's like a tad more efficient this season, playing off of Cade, playing off Monte Morris. I think that Cade, Cunningham, Jalen Duran pick and roll is going to be pretty lethal in terms of just Cade finishing or finding Jalen for lobs. So I'm bullish. I don't think they're top 15, but I think I could see them having like the 18th, 17th, maybe even 16th best offense in the league.
I like it. I should clarify. Oh, wait. And before I do, Sean, you're our guy. If you want me to answer fantasy football questions, you will get terrible answers, but I will do it. Uh, I'm not good at fantasy football. Anyway, I should
Sean just
clarify
brought up
that
an
I think. Go ahead.
sorry, Sean just brought up an excellent point in the comments.
Wow.
Every Monty Williams coach or assistant coach team has had an offensive rating of 16th or higher for the past decade. And I'm pretty sure when he took over that Suns team, that's where they made a major leap in his first season, was on the offensive end. So just one more thing to my little case.
I think this is going to break it. I think this is breaking his streak. I shouldn't say that. I don't think that they're not going to improve. I think they're really going to improve. I think they're going to get a lot better. But don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure, at least I think, when they made that jump the season prior into last season, I think it was like 3 or 4 points per game that they actually improved. And they still didn't go any. Actually, they might have gotten worse in terms of league standing. Like, I think the league is just progressing at such a pace offensively where they could improve a lot. They could get a lot better and still only wind up being, maybe the 21st best offense in the league. I I'm just not confident in the massive jump. I think that they're going to really improve, and I do think I'm with you that that side's going to be a lot more fun to watch than the defensive end. I'm just it's over the top optimism that I can't get behind at the moment. I'm just a little too nervous with it.
No, I completely understand. I completely understand. I think if this team's going to win 10 more games, 12 games this season, they're going to have to take some sort of, not major leap, but you can't be in the bottom 5 for offensive and defensive rating. And for me, I think it's on the offensive end. I think you're a bit more higher on the defensive end. And hey, maybe they still get to the same point in terms of win-loss.
I'm much higher on this roster on the offensive end than the defensive end. I think it's easier to improve on the defensive end than it will be for this roster to improve on the offensive end, just because everyone else is really improving on offense too, which means that everyone else is kind of getting worse on defense because we're just talking stats here. So that's where more of this is coming from. It's not like I'm overwhelmingly positive about the defense. I just think they have an easier jump to make from
yeah,
like really, really bad to just kind of almost okay.
yeah. No, and look, honestly, like it's when we're in the off season. I know I sometimes get caught up doing this when I do like some other over unders, but it's like there is 29 other teams in the league that if the Pistons are going to win 12 extra games, those games are going to be taken from other teams. And for the Pistons to get into the play-in conversation, they've got to leap 4 to 5 teams. So you've got to count on 4 to 5 teams getting worse. So, yeah, it's sometimes a bit easy to forget about the rest of the league. So, all right, I'm going to jump to the next one here. I hope this isn't
More than
taking
let's hit some
too.
questions.
Okay, I've got some rapid fire ones too, which I want to go through, which will be just pretty much over and under. But all right,
Love it. Okay.
I'll skip this one because it was a bit negative. So we'll do this one. Trades before the trade deadline. I've set the line at 2.5.
Ooh,
Are you over or under?
2.5.
So this is from today. Because I still think there could be one more trade coming.
Slam the under. I think there's one. Tops. tops. There's one. Like I wouldn't even be confident saying over on 1.5 as being the line here. I think that there's probably one more trade happening this offseason. I don't think that's guaranteed, but I would probably I'd say it's likely. And then once you get up to the trade deadline, like I just don't think they're going to offload everybody. You know, like I think they might make a trade at the trade deadline. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at this point. So in order to pick the over on that, you would need not only a trade now, but you need multiple trades at the deadline. Under, under.
I like it. I'm gonna say over. Just. I think there could be a trade before the start of the season, and because last season I think the Boyan trade went through in probably around this time last year, maybe a bit later in September. And
A
then
little bit later in September.
yeah, I could see part of me sees a trade coming at the trade deadline, but there are a couple, not
Two,
major moves,
Jack?
but just
Two?
Troy loves a trade. I know. It seems, yeah. I'm just taking the over.
Love it. It'd be fun.
All right, I got a few rapid fires here. All right, this is just over or
Okay.
under. I'm not going to answer.
All
I
right.
just want Wes. I just want you to answer. Cade Cunningham, 23 points. Over or under?
Over.
Cade Cunningham assists, 7.5.
Under.
Jaden Ivey, 17.5 points or 17.5 points per game.
Over.
Jalen Duran, 1.5 blocks per game.
Under.
Yeah. I'll skip that one. Asar Thompson, 29.5% 3-point percentage. Did that make sense?
Under.
I think I explained. Under
Yeah.
29.5. All right. Asar Thompson, 8.5 points per game.
Under.
Isaiah Stewart,
I don't like you, Jack.
34.5.
I don't like that one.
Isaiah Stewart, 34.5% from 3.
Ooh, that's good. Over, but narrow. I'm expecting like 35 out of him.
I like that I got you with that one a little bit. All right. I think I know your answer on this one, but how many of Joe Harris, Alec Burks, Boyan Bogdanovic, and Monte Morris are on the team after the trade deadline? 2.5.
All
Not
right.
that you can have half a player.
How many
but
players did you just name? Sorry, I'm trying to remember back through.
My bad. I named the 4 veteran guys. So Boyan, Joe
Okay,
Harris,
the 4
Alec
veteran
Burks,
guys.
and Monte Morris. Yeah. The line was 2.5
And the over
after the trade
under
deadline.
was 2.5.
Yeah.
Over. I bet only one of them gets moved.
Cool. Last one. Killian Hayes, 32.5 games played. I don't even know where I pulled this number from. Under. Okay, let's go. All right, that was fun. Let's get into some questions. Did you have any final comments?
Just that you were out for blood with those. Made me
I
look
thought
so
they were pretty
negative on a
good.
couple of them. And you knew it. You knew what you were doing.
All right, we'll get some questions here. So shout out to everyone jumping in the comments. We appreciate everyone and anyone that tunes in at this time of the year. All right, first one here is from Christian R. What is the timeline until the Pistons are a 40-win team?
All right. I actually love this question because this is something that I've been thinking about, and I think I almost put it on a recent outline for the Pistons Pulse because I think it's a really good question, right? Like basically, how much longer until this team is on the doorstep of actually competing in the playoffs, right? Because 40 wins is probably getting you from that, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's play-in range, right? So you're on the doorstep and you'd want to take that next step up. And if you can hit 40 wins, that's I guess that's kind of the sign, right? Like we're done rebuilding. It's really time to go. Now it's time to go. I think they need one more year. I don't think they're going to really approach that number this season. But I do think barring health, right? As long as everyone is healthy, I think it's pretty reasonable to look at the final year of Cade's contract and go, okay, this is the year, like, we're going to be close. They're going to get, 37, 38, 39, 40 wins, something in that range, maybe even over, maybe up to 42, 43, right? Like, that's all the same bucket to me. And I think it's pretty reasonable season after next to go
Yeah.
ahead and say, all right, this is where we need to be, or we need to start looking elsewhere. Something's not quite working. Um, so for me, it's 2 years. It's 2 years till they hit that point, and then they try to pivot and be actual, players, right? Actual contenders in the East for the playoffs, not for the championship, but just playoff
Yeah.
competitors.
Yeah.
Anywhere from like 3 to 5 or 6
Yeah.
seed in the playoffs. Like, very, very good team. So interested to hear where you're at on it though, because I can imagine it would go a few ways.
Look, I'll be honest. I would like to disagree, but I'm with you. I think it's definitely not this season. It's the season after. So I think that would be the 2024-2025 season. So that
Yeah.
would be, yeah, like you said, the last year of Cade's deal or his fourth season in the league. I think, and pretty much like you outlined, that season they could be anywhere between 37 and 42 wins. I think for that to occur, Cade truly needs to be that guy. Like, he really needs to take, I'm not saying he needs to take a SGA leap, but he needs to be like the Oklahoma City Thunder. They won 40 games this past season, and that was largely off the back of a really good rookie season from Jalen Williams, obviously SGA, Josh Giddey still contributing in winning ways. So I think for the Pistons to get there, Cade needs to be like at least an all-star and be playing some, like, leading this team. But and I believe that. So I think that 40-win season probably comes in the season after next.
I'm actually going to disagree with something that you brought up in there. So this will be fun. Um,
Let's go.
I really don't think that it relies on Cade being an all-star to get to that 40 win threshold or near it. And I only say that because that's a fairly low, I don't want to say it's a low goal, but it's not like, shooting for the stars, right? We're hoping to be almost 500 if we're a 40 win team, right? Like, that's not over the moon to ask. So if Cade isn't an all-star, but the rest of the team takes some steps forward, I mean, I still think he needs to be the best player on the team, but he is right now, probably, right? Like, as long as what he showed last year is what he can do again. He's already the best player on this team. And that guy that we saw is already good enough if there are enough players around him to get to close to 40 wins, right? If he can do it consistently. So I think, when we're all talking about if this is all going to work, Cade has to be, quote unquote, the guy. To me, that's more in the long run, looking at, can they compete in the East? Can they compete for a championship? I think you could be pretty confident looking at Cade Cunningham today and say if he's healthy, he can get you 40 wins if you put good enough pieces around him, right? Like, if they swapped all of the other young guys but Cade Cunningham for very good NBA players, just solid starters, I think you'd probably approach 40 wins. It's just the rest of the roster's super young too. So you're kind of compounding on his age. So yeah, I don't think he even needs to be an all-star in 2 years if you're going to get close to 40. I think you could do it without it. Everyone else just has to keep getting better.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. I think why I think Cade does have to be like an all-star and be like pushing, like be really in the conversation in like the top 35, 40 players in the league at least, is like, I just still think if the Pistons are going to win 40 games season after next, they may not have the veterans they currently have on the roster, and there'll be some roster turnover, and maybe Jalen Duren's still taking some time because he's so young. Jaden Ivey might still be taking a bit more time. I think as much as I believe in Jaden Ivey and this core, I still just think they're so young, and I think Cade's the one there who could lead them to 40 wins. But everything you outline is completely fair and makes a lot of sense.
Well, and I'll say if they do, like if in 2 years they've won 38 games and Cade doesn't look like the type of guy you're talking about, some big time long term questions about where this rebuild can go, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're looking at a team who's about to have to pay a guy who's very, very good, but you know,
Hmm.
wasn't the top
That's a
30
great
guy in
point.
the league, and you're about to give him a huge contract extension. How are you going to build it all up around him? Like, I don't know. It could get interesting at that point if that's the bridge they have to cross.
For sure. And I think just overall, I'm just after the past few seasons, especially last season, I'm scared to put I'm a bit scared of getting overly optimistic with every guy panning out and being all stars. So I might be a bit
One
more
guy I'm
pessimistic.
confident in panning out and being an all star is Cade Cunningham, though. So
Yeah.
I think you like if you're going to make that bet, it's safe.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next question from Christian again. And shout out to Christian. I feel like this is the first time I've seen him submitting questions. So we appreciate you. Um, should Sasa go to the G League until Burks is traded, or is keeping him on the main roster better for his game?
That's a good question. Oddly enough, I think it kind of depends where he sits relative to Killian Hayes. Weirdly enough. At this point, I would kind of venture to guess that Sasser's ahead of Killian, which would mean he's the injury backup in case any of Cade, Ivy, Morris, or Burks go down. He'd probably be the next guy to step up. I mean, they did just use a first round pick on him and they talk super highly on him. He had a pretty good summer league overall. Like, he looks fairly ready. Obviously, all of that can change in training camp in the preseason. Maybe if Killian Hayes beats him out, Killian Hayes beats him out. But as it stands right now, like we've been talking about all off season, if you're Killian Hayes, you pretty much went from number one on the depth chart to like six. So as of right now, I think Sasser ought to be staying with the team just in case, right? And it's not like he's not getting any game minutes because he'll be practicing all the time, and I'm sure he'll get spot minutes here and there. Um, the other thing that I might note would be that sometimes for guards like Sasser, the G League isn't really the best environment, I guess I'd say, for them to succeed. I mean, he's already shown he can thrive at the college level, and what the G League lacks is something that would really challenge him in terms of bigs that can lock down the paint and block some shots. I mean, we saw it with Saban Lee a few years
Just gonna
ago,
say,
right? Like he'd go down to the G League, he'd be tearing it up because no one in the G League can go block shots. If you can block shots in the G League, you're in the NBA, right? They're pulling you up. So I'm just not sure how much there actually is for him to gain by going down and playing those minutes with the Crews. That said, I mean, if you've got a couple days off or something, right, with the main roster with the Pistons, they're right there in Detroit. If they're playing a game, I could see him sticking him with the Crews just to hey, go get some run or something. But
yeah,
in terms of just the general idea, no, I think Sasser should be active on game days. I think he's probably next man up at this point,
yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, so I agree. And to piggyback off what you're saying, like I could see him in the G League if, say, he's getting some spot minutes in the rotation every few games and he's just struggling with his shot. He looks a bit out of rhythm. Like I could see him going to the Cruise for like 3 games or just like a week or what 2 to 3 games and just finding a rhythm again, finding his shot, getting that confidence back on the court potentially. Um, that's the only way I could really envision him being there. The only difference between him and Saban is Saban Lee was like sort of a freak athlete. So
Yeah.
he especially dominated the G League. Maybe Marcus Sasser can't, like, maybe there's a bit more to gain for him. But at the same time, like, I'm with you. Like, we saw Sekou Doumbouya going to the G League and sort of have some really good games. I know it used to get me really hyped. I'd be watching the G League games with Sekou. So
Did
I think
too.
it's a good thing. It's a good thing for like confidence boosting and that kind of thing, and finding a rhythm. But I don't think we've ever seen Killian Hayes with the Motor City Cruise. And I know he's played heaps of minutes, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, but I also don't think Marcus plays a ton of minutes for the Crews this season.
I will say, I mean, I think that this could be the perfect situation to finally use the Crews like Dwayne Casey has wanted to use the Crews. When they actually did disaffiliate with Grand Rapids and move it over to Detroit. Because what he wanted to replicate that Toronto system, right? And when he was coaching in Toronto, some of the young guys that were, fringe rotation players for him, sometimes he'd just send them over to play a game and then bring them back the next day to practice with the team and then go actually play a game in the NBA the next day. Like really try to maximize the mileage going on those tires for those young guys. Just to keep them in rhythm and all that stuff because they're right there. I mean, they're literally next door. I mean, they might have even played in the same arena. They're very, very tight together. So that was why he really wanted this. This could finally be the situation to do it, right? I mean, in the past few years, none of the first round picks have been fringe rotation guys. They've all been rotation guys. Sasser looks like he's kind of on the edge. Like he'll probably play some nights, not others. At least, from where we're sitting today on September 14th. So that could be the perfect opportunity. Maybe he actually does end up playing a decent amount of G League games, but in doing so, doesn't miss any time with the NBA roster either.
Yeah.
So I could see that happening.
For sure. I agree. Just going to move on to the next question because I'm just conscious of time. The next one is from Sean, and I'll explain this. So a true test of optimism, over under 100 total points for Rookie of the Year for Asar Thompson. So Sean's referring to voting points at the end of the year when they vote for Rookie of the Year. So he also says in the comments, for reference, last year, Paolo Banchero finished with 494 points, Jalen Williams 241, Walker Kessler 114, Benedict Mathurin 27, and then you see the other couple of guys there. So 100 total points, that probably puts you third in Rookie of the Year voting, firmly in first team or rookie, I would say. So you're taking the over under on 100 total voting points for Asar Thompson.
So my gut when I saw the question was under. And that's because, I mean, largely Rookie of the Year has been a points per game award. If you look back, you could probably count on one hand the number of rookies who've won it that didn't also lead that class in points per game. And I do not expect Asar Thompson to score 20 points a night. I think that's probably pretty reasonable to throw out there. I don't think he's going to be a 20-point per night scorer. So I would say my gut is the under. The only thing that's given me a little bit of pause on this is Walker Kessler there getting 114.
You took it from me. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but you took it right from me.
Yeah, it's making me go, hey, wait. Maybe if he makes enough of an impact on the defensive end while only scoring, 8 points per game or something like that, along with, rebounds and assists. But like if he's averaging over 3 stocks per game, does that put him in that Walker Kessler range where you're like, oh, maybe. I'm not sure. And I do know that Walker Kessler was a bit of an outlier. I'm going to stick with the under, but it's a little bit more reasonable than I initially thought, I should say.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to stick with the under, but that Walker Kessler, those voting numbers do give me cause to stop and think, because I think the factors that played into him coming third were the Jazz getting off to a surprising start. Now, a lot of that was to do with Larry Markkinen, but Kessler was also very impressive defensively. So if the Pistons can get off to somewhat of if they can get off to a surprising start, that doesn't mean they're 10-0 or anything, but if they can get off to a start that surprises and catches sort of the national media's attention and just catches the NBA's attention at large, I feel like Asar could get some votes just based off like the team starting well, surprising some people. And then, like you said, he's averaging 2 stocks. He's locking up. He has some really good nights against, say, like a Paul George. He holds him to 6 of 18 shooting. And he has some of those impressive moments. as well as you mix in, like he's going to have, I'm not saying the voters are this sort of shallow with their voting, but like because he can be a highlight reel player offensively. If he's playing really good defense, the Pistons are winning some games. Like I'm still taking the under, but I can envision a world where he does. Like I don't think it's insane to say he's to take the over on 100 votes for him at the end of the season.
Yeah. To
But there's a
build on
lot of
that, I
things that
think
have to go into it. Yeah,
I was just going to say, I think what it would take to him to get for him to get over 100 in those, like actually to come in second or third. I think, like you said, the team has to get off to a good start. So that's A. He has to be starting, right? Like he can't really be coming off the bench. He needs to be getting a ton of minutes. So he needs to be starting. And then three, like if they play Boston early, like you said with Paul George, like if he has a stretch of a couple of stars in the first 2-ish months of the season, and he locks them down, just like looks like he's giving them fits, even if they still have fairly good games, right? Like makes them make boneheaded play, do something that gets on
yeah,
ESPN, and then it gets noticed as a trend. It is a narrative award, so I think that's when you'd see a lot of the hype start building on it, and then maybe he does get a Walker Kessler type of respect in that way. So I think that's what would have to happen. I don't know how likely it is, but I think that's what it'd have to be.
for sure. And I think just final point on that is like I don't think he's going to be a player that, whilst I don't think the 3-point shot's going to be there for a little bit, I also don't think he's a player that's going to have a ton of really horrible moments offensively just because he's a connector on offense. He passes. He's going to score like cutting and dunking and in transition. So I think that sort of helps a little bit in terms of like not having those like 3 of 15 nights or those horrible like ISO possessions. I think he's really going to fit into the flow of the offense. And like, because we saw with Jaden Ivey last year, like he could just have some real stinkers offensively. Not that I think that mattered in terms of the voting for him, but yeah, that Walker
He just
Kessler
can't
though,
do the
that
Stanley
gives me
Johnson
hope.
thing,
Yeah, exactly
right?
right.
He can't do the Stanley Johnson. He can't put up like a 1 for 15 shooting night, but played great defense and then still get the
Yeah,
respect. Like it's got to be one or the other. He's got to be scoring a bunch of points or not scoring, but not missing a ton of shots either, and then also playing ridiculously good defense for a rookie. Um, yeah,
for sure. Great question from Sean. All right, John
and on
Buck,
theme too.
very on theme. So this is a projection, a statement, and I love it. My bold projection: Cade makes the All Star game, Duran most improved, and Asar All NBA defensive team make the play in with a 37-45 record. Can you imagine if that happens? Which one of these,
Yeah,
to make this a question, which one of these do you think is most likely? So
oh my
Cade makes the
god.
All-Star game, Duran most improved. Maybe for some fun, let's rank these in terms of most likely to least likely. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
All right. No, this is good. This will be fun. Most likely to least likely. Most likely Cade making an all-star game. Um, all right, a tie because I think they're equally unlikely. Duran most improved and the 37 wins. I think both of
yeah,
those are like very, very long shot, but plausible. Asar making all defense, he would be the first rookie since Tim Duncan in 1998, the year I was born, to make an all defensive team in the regular season. Maybe he could do it. Maybe he's that guy. Maybe. Who knows? But my lord, would that be in, an incredible out of the blue? Who could have ever predicted that thing that just happened? If that does happen, maybe he's the guy. Maybe he is. He'd be the first since the year I was born. So I'm just gonna say that's the least likely.
All right. I think Yeah, Cade makes the All-Star games the most likely of these. Then I would say for me, it's the I feel like making the play-in with 37.45. That would be second, then Duran most improved, then Basar. So I think we were in lockstep there, pretty much. Love the optimism though. And just to clarify, this is John's bold
Yes.
prediction. This is his
Yes.
best case
Do love
scenario,
the
which
optimism.
I love it. This was probably me last season. Before last season started, I was very, very high making bold projections. Now I'm more a bit, I've reined it in a little bit. All right. David, so many have asked why the Joe Harris trade. There's been so much smoke around Boyan trades. So you think Harris was just a 3-point insurance for if Boyan is dealt?
It's a good question. I think we've actually mentioned it before. I'm not sure if we've done it here or if this was something I just talked about on the Pistons post. But um, I if Joe Harris is your insurance for Bojan Bogdanovic, it'd be kind of like insuring 30% of your home's value, and then just like hoping nothing bad happens. Because what Joe Harris can give you is the 3-point shot. He can do that really well. And on occasion, he can attack a closeout. But Bojan can score at the other two levels at a very, very high level, and he can do it on his own, right? He doesn't need the pass to come to him. He doesn't need to be open, moving off ball first. He can do that too, but you can ISO Boyan and he would go get you a bucket pretty regularly. Um, so I don't really think Joe Harris was insurance in that way for Boyan in case he's dealt. I kind of look at Joe Harris more as a veteran shooter that's on it's an expiring deal in the short term. He can come in and help you just by spacing the floor. Because if you look at this roster, there really aren't a ton of pure floor spacers. I think you can end the list at Boyan and Burks. Morris is probably close. Morris is close to getting in that, but pure shooters, Boyan and Burks. That's it. So now you got Joe Harris too. I think this was more one of those smaller moves where, hey, we're not going to make a big offseason signing. We're not going to do anything to dramatically change this roster. But what we're going to do is get someone on the edge of it who can come in and do a very, very specific role and do it well. I know he can do it well. And that's valuable. So I think that's, the why of the Joe Harris trade. I think that's why. I think he can shoot consistently, and he's not necessarily a one trick pony because if you close out too hard on him, he can go make a layup. Right. Um, but like I don't think he's if Boyan gets traded now, Joe Harris is averaging over 20 minutes a game. Like I
Yeah.
don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the shooting factor was the appeal in terms of on court. And I believe he's an expiring contract. So after sort of
Mhm.
not making a big signing this off season, I think Troy then is able to, get some additional cap space for next off season, as well as I believe the Pistons got 2 second round picks. I can't remember if they were future or I think they would be future
They
second
were.
round picks. So you got some draft capital there, and I think the shooting helps. But yeah, I don't think the trade was made just out of just because they're going to move Boyan and he's the replacement. I think it's more so he brings some shooting, helps next off season, and you get some draft capital,
Yeah, I
and he's
agree.
a veteran. So you get another older head in there. And yes, he's not a plus guy defensively, probably a negative defensively, but he's been in the league, he's played some playoff games. Yeah, and I would imagine he's a good locker room guy. I don't think I've ever heard anything bad about Joe Harris. So
Yeah. Bryce brings this up all the time, but and anytime you see a guy gets brought into this Pistons roster, and one of the big concerns is, well, you can't play him in the playoffs. Who cares? They're not making the playoffs. You can play him in the regular
yeah,
season, right? And he's not
exactly.
going to be around when they start making the playoffs. That's the thing. He's a transitory type player. He's kind of in between. He's going to help you get there long term, not now.
Exactly. All right, John back again. Crazy to think that next year
Right.
we could be thinking of trading Cade and Ivy leading the team. I hope not.
So,
Trading
John, you're
Cade and
super
Ivy.
high on Jaden Ivey, huh? That's what it's got to be, right? I don't know. I think I started this just to get your reaction on it because you said, John, you said that the last one was a bold take. I think this is the bold take. This is the bold take, and like it's not unreasonable, right? I mean, Jaden Ivey showed a ton of potential. If he really takes a massive leap and Cade doesn't look healthy, like yeah, you could get in this situation. I'm not betting on it though. I think that's bold. I like it, but it's bold.
So I want to tie in here because there's an over under I didn't read out, and the only way I could see Kay Cunningham ever being traded next season or at all between now and the end of his rookie extensions, that'd be year 7, would be because of injury struggles. So there was an over under I wanted to ask of Cade playing more than 65 and a half games this season. Over under.
Over.
Just so you know, as a rookie, he played 64, and then last season he obviously played
Yeah,
12. So you're taking the over. Yeah. So you're not
I'm taking the
concerned with
over.
injuries. Injuries in his injury history so far don't concern you.
No, but only because he really doesn't have one yet, if that makes sense. I mean, if you look back to his rookie year, he missed time with an ankle injury, right? He twisted his ankle. Nothing major. It happens all the time. I think he only missed like the first week of the season or something like that, right? It wasn't anything big. His second stretch of games that he missed that year was he got sick with COVID-19, right? Like
Yeah.
okay, you can chalk that one up too. He didn't really get hurt. Those are both COVID. You could throw that out the window because that is an exceptional circumstance, right? And spraining an ankle happens all the time. It wasn't even severe. He just had to sit down and rest a couple of weeks. That was it. The only significant injury we've got is this shin thing that he dealt with last year that reportedly went all the way back to when he was in high school. So there's really no reason to think he has an injury history now that they've corrected the one thing that had been an issue. That can obviously change. Things come out of nowhere. Perfectly healthy guys before develop, become injury prone, what have you. It happens. I'm not worried about it yet. I think if we're sitting here next September and we're talking about will Cade play more than 60 games this season or not, I think then I'll be worried. But right now, no, I'm not worried. I'm not concerned.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not concerned about the injury history. Part of me is just like a little bit concerned only for this season. Just like all the time missed last season in terms of him gelling. Like, I don't think Cade's going to have an issue gelling with players because I think that's one of the special things about him is as much as he's an on-ball creator guy, like he can also just like fit in quite seamlessly around other guys just with his size and sort of skill set. But yeah, I'm not worried about the injuries. He hasn't had like twisted ankle, like it's probably the most common injury in basketball, an ankle sprain, and
Yes, it
then
is.
COVID. I guess just the shin injury. I don't know a lot about them, but it seems like they took the cautious route and gave him the most time possible to recover and get ready for this season. So yeah, it's not like he has any sort of
Uh,
soft tissue.
yeah.
Oh,
Sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're good. Did I say something wrong?
No, 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 no. You didn't say anything
Oh,
wrong. I was just gonna
oh
throw in that Piston legend Rodney Magruder dealt with the same injury, the same surgery, had it
yeah,
fixed, wasn't an issue for him again, and has played a
there you
bunch of
go.
years now since.
Yeah, for sure. And like it hasn't like he's had any major injuries. I don't even want to say them because I don't want to jinx it. But yeah, they're all. Yeah, I don't think
This
there's
isn't
any reason
Zion.
for concern there. This isn't Zion, correct? It's not. Yeah, I'm not saying the injuries actually. So, um, yeah, I find it incredibly hard to see Cade being traded, and just because he's already the leader of the team, I feel like
Mhm.
he's the way players talk about him, even from other teams, like yeah, he's a leader. I think like everything starts with him in the locker room. So I would be so shocked. Like Jaden Ivey, the way he talks about Cade, like you can tell he looks up to him, even though they're the same age and don't lead a year apart
Yeah.
in the draft. Like, so I just think I cannot foresee that scenario. As high as I am on Jaden Ivey too, I just can't see that happening. Right, we've got one more question here from Christian once again. The Rockets are offering a lot of capital to trade Kevin Porter Jr. Is there a scenario where trading for him and stretching would be worth it?
It's a good question. It's that second part of it that could be worth it because there's obviously no way he would be on the team, right? So you're talking about bailing out the Rockets, grabbing him along with future draft capital, and then immediately cutting the guy because I'm not even going to say what was going on there, what the
Yeah,
backstory is. So, um, I pulled up the spot track. This year, he's guaranteed the entire 15 mil that's on his contract. Next year, only 1 million of it's guaranteed. The year after that and the year following, a total of $0 is guaranteed. So if I'm reading this right, if you waived him and stretched it, you would really only be on the hook for $17 million. Is that worth a first round pick or two? Maybe. How good do we think the Rockets are going to be? I think that's the bigger question there.
for sure. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about Kevin Porter Jr. to be honest, and I'm not laughing at the scenario. I'm laughing just because it's a nervous laugh because yeah, it's horrible. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't even really want to entertain trading for him. I know he would never even come into the organization, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I
you'd
don't think
lock
it's
those
really worth
doors.
it. Yeah, I don't think it's worth it. I don't. Yeah, I understand maybe the basketball side of it, but yeah, I've seen some stuff about trading for him and how it could benefit the team or a team that trades for him in terms of long term. But yeah, I'm just a no on this.
The optics would be absolutely awful for any
Especially with
team
some of
that
the
does
things.
bail out the Rockets here.
Yeah,
Because the
and
other thing that
especially
you got to
yeah,
look at too, like narratively, the Rockets they took the shot on him too after he had a bunch of issues
yeah,
pre-draft and in Cleveland that caused the Cavs to give up on him. So like no
yeah,
part of this is looking good organizationally either.
yeah,
So it
for
would look
sure.
bad.
Yeah, so
We'll
I'm
move
just
on
a firm
because
no.
yikes,
But yeah,
yikes.
I did. There was one more thing which John Buck's been active today. I love it.
John,
So
you're a guy, man. Love how active you are in the comments. This is great.
he feels like Ivy could be the old man out when it comes to contracts. I assume he's talking about sort of the core four players.
Yeah. Well, you've been talking about it, right? I mean, the odds that all four of them are around when they're competing for like Eastern Conference Finals, right? Low, pretty low.
Yeah, yeah,
It'd just be a lot to ask. I bring this up a lot just in the personal life. Like you are not the average. Okay. So just because it doesn't happen often doesn't mean it won't happen for you. So there's hope here. There's a lot of hope here that maybe that core group of four guys does. They could be the group that pulls it off again, like the Thunder did before them, or like the Warriors did too. In terms of odd man out, I think it's probably between Ivy and Duran. Like if one of the four is moved on from, I think it's probably whichever of those two actually becomes more valuable, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Assuming that the other also becomes good enough, right? Like maybe they're not an all-star, but they're a very good starter. The guy that's more valuable is the guy that might be pulling back a big, star in a trade. So that's probably the guy you're giving up to keep Cade and the rest of the core, and then add your Kawhi Leonard at the expense of DeMar DeRozan and picks,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I kind of when I put it that way and when I think it through, I do think Ivy is more likely only because I'm a little higher on him than I am on Durant. So I don't think that's ridiculous at all to say, in 4 years they might need to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as like Ivy could very well be the guy traded, and it's not because of him not reaching his potential. It's probably because, yeah, like you said, he's the most valuable piece that can net you that player, um, can net you that true all-star type player, who can help you probably win maybe now or like, or you package Ivy with maybe you package Ivy and Duran, who knows, like, or Ivy
Yeah.
and I think the reason for me, Asar probably is more of a not lock to stay, but I think just wings are so important these days. Like such an important position come playoff time. And even if Asar doesn't become like a scorer, I think just what he brings defensively and the rest of his game, I just think that's going to be really valuable alongside Cade. And just helping this team sort of win games in the playoffs and be positionally versatile, as opposed to maybe Ivy, who's a 6'4" guard who you already have Cade at the guard position. He's going to do a lot of ball handling. Like as much as high as I am on Jaden Ivy, like if you could find more of like a like I feel like if you have a Sar, you could maybe find like a really versatile shooter, scoring type guy. It's probably also hard to find, but yeah, I just think because you have Cade and then you keep a Sar, I think it is one of Duran or Ivy. And it's because they
Yeah.
get to a
Well,
level
and
where you can trade them for someone.
just kind of building off that, right? I mean, if we're prognosticating into the future, we're thinking about who gets moved for a big star, right? You got to then consider the value above average at a given position for these guys. And unless Jalen Duren's about to become Joel Embiid, you could probably get about 80% of Jalen Duren with just a run of the mill, very good defensive center in the NBA. And those guys aren't all that expensive. So that would mean that, yes, the Pistons would be more willing to move on from Jalen Duren, but that would also mean that you would get less value back. Um, so yeah, I think it's probably Ivy in, like I said, 4 years. Like I don't think this is at any point in the near term future at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I keep saying, I mean, they can do it. They can make it happen. The four of them, it's possible.
Yeah. Definitely worth clarifying now for sure. Like there is a world where like, and you said at the start, like those four, just because the averages say a couple of them probably get moved, there is a world where maybe all four do work out. So I can certainly see these four coexisting together. Like this isn't the Philadelphia 76ers when they drafted three centers straight with Okafor and Bede and Noel. Like it's not, there's not much, if any, positional overlap or nothing that's detrimental to these four working it out. So that is like, I would love to see all four stay together. I'm just trying to be realistic at the same time. And I think you're the same. All right. Last question here from John Buck. Once again, shout out to John for all the questions. We appreciate you. How would DeAndre Hunter fit on the Pistons?
DeAndre Hunter's a guy that I actually have wanted to swipe from Atlanta for a while. I think he would fit like a glove if you can convince him to shoot the three ball a little bit more, which, to be fair, Atlanta's been trying to do since they drafted him. Right. But if Monty Williams is the guy that can, break through to him and get him to put up 6 threes a game instead of, gosh, I feel like 3 or 4, right? Like if he could bump that up, he's a very good shooter. He is. So he's pretty much your prototypical 3 and D guy. He can put the ball on the court a little bit. He can get to the rim a little bit, but what he does really well is defense, and he can shoot. So it would be a lot of fun, I think, to have him and Asar Thompson out there just hounding wings all night for 82 games, right? The other concern though that you got to bring up with Hunter, I believe he does have a bit of an injury history too,
Yeah.
which isn't perfect, and he's getting paid a lot of money. So I'm not even sure. John, you brought up Bojan. I'm not even sure DeAndre Hunter right now is worth Bojan. I bet you could get him for less. I bet the Hawks would like to get off him. He's getting paid a lot of money now. He got a big extension. and they gambled big time on him. So if they want to get off of that, I think it might be a little less than Bojan. But I think he would fit really well. I do. I like him.
Yeah, no, look, I like him. I don't think I want him on the Pistons. Like I get the reasons for bringing him in. I think you brought up the injury stuff. Whenever I've watched DeAndre Hunter, he just feels like a bit of a ball stopper and just someone who likes to like take one or two dribbles in and pull up for a mid-range shot, which I haven't checked the numbers, but I think he's okay at it. Like it's not like it's a horrific shot. But if he's going to come to Detroit and play with Kate Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, even Jalen Duran, some of the other guards on the team, like I think I just want DeAndre being a true 3-and-D player and just taking threes, tacking off closeouts when it's there. And I wonder if that'd be something he's down with. Obviously, I don't know him personally, don't have any ties to the Hawks, so I'm not sure 100% on that statement. But yeah. And I just also, like, I heard, so once again, I was listening to Sam Vecini's Game Theory podcast, and they were sort of talking about DeAndre Hunter. And I think the theory is there that he is solid defensively, but how good is he for that price? If he's just going to be an average 3-point shooter and someone who sort of makes a little bit happen inside the arc, like that's my only thing. I think he's a solid player, and I could see the argument for bringing him to Detroit. I just don't think I'm very interested, to be honest.
Yeah, that's where the volume comes in, right? Like if he ups his 3-point attempts and the percentages stay the same, which by all accounts you can reasonably assume they will. He's a very good shooter. Um, if he's now putting up like 17 points per game on pretty good efficiencies, and he's a good to above average defender, right? Like that's pretty good for the price. If you can't get him to start doing those things, not so much. So it is a bit of a projection, and he is still fairly young. He was an older rookie though, so
Yeah,
all these reasons that we're talking about being hesitant. That's also reasons why the Hawks might be a little bit willing to step aside and move on from him too. So pros
for
and the
sure.
cons, right?
For sure. I think that'll do it for this week, Wes. Shout out to everyone,
So
all the comments. Christian R, shout out to you for all the comments today and questions. Appreciate you. I think this might be the first time I've seen you in here, so appreciate any new listeners, any new questions, any new commenters. Shout out to my co-host Wes, as always. And special mention to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys. He's the man who allows us to do this. Until then, we'll be back. This is our new time for the foreseeable future. We're really going to try and stick to this throughout the season. So Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. We know it's a bit earlier, but we appreciate anyone that can make it happen. We're going to try and stick to this date and time. So until next week, go Pistons.